Hey, I'm going to give you guys a few tips on how to have a bright financial future. Whether you're in your late teens and early 20s and just starting out your journey, or you're a little older and want to get on the right track, maybe you're a parent and you want to give some advice to your own kids. I think this video has a little bit of something for everyone. All right, let's start with number one. Start working early. Take on small jobs in your teens. Lawn mowing, landscaping, leaf raking, snow shoveling, babysitting, dog walking, car washing, detailing, family photography. These are all ideas for jobs that you can do in your teens and early 20s or side gigs just to make some extra cash. So start working early. The longer you're able to save and invest and the earlier you start, the easier your future is going to be. So I know a lot of people just want to goof off and have fun in their teens, but then they struggle a little bit later in life. So if you can work hard in your teens and early 20s, you're going to be sailing smooth in your 30s and 40s. Plus, it just gets you in some good habits and gets you used to having a good hard work ethic, which brings us to our next point. Build a solid reputation. So word of mouth reputation is just so invaluable. Family, friends, neighbors, and referrals you'll get from doing hard work, going the extra mile when you're doing these jobs I was talking about. And make sure you're doing that even when no one's looking. You're going to get a lot of credit when people see that you give them what they paid for and even a little bit more. Go that extra mile. You're detailing a car and you're done, you've already been paid. Maybe give them a coupon for the next job. Let people know that they got good value for their money. And be generous and provide a lot of value to others, and they'll keep coming back to you, and they're going to refer you to their friends and family. All right, for the next one, you want to limit your discretionary spending. Those would be things like fast food, restaurants, delivery services, alcohol, vape, cigarettes. All those things are definitely a waste of money. Not only that, but they're harmful to your health too. New technology, cell phone upgrades, laptops, watches, car accessories, unnecessary car upgrades, putting that spoiler on the back of it or graphics or glowing lights or whatever. Those things are all cool, but they're going to take away from your future success if you waste your money on those now. So if you've already done some of that, there's no better time to start than now, so try to limit your discretionary spending. Trendy clothes, things like that. Also, I'm not encouraging you to be stingy or cheap, but also just don't be wasteful. You can have a small budget for things like that if you want to have some fun and buy some cool devices and things, but make sure that you're doing it intentionally and you're staying in your budget. So set aside some money for that if you want to have some fun money, but don't go beyond the budget. The next one is that some choices have really long-term consequences and much more serious consequences than others. You want to avoid these kind of things when you're young, or ever, really. And I'm talking about things like unplanned pregnancy. I can't even tell you what that can do to your life. So I love kids. I have 4 kids of my own, and every one of them is unplanned. And I love them to death. But life is a lot harder and a lot more difficult when you go that route. And I would encourage you to not get into that. So in my personal opinion, and my moral compass and my faith is that you want to date responsibly, get married, spend some time together, then have kids. Try to do it in that order. I know very few of us, including I didn't do it, but very few people do. But the earlier that you have kids, your life starts getting complicated. And then once you do, just take ownership of it and accept the fact that you're a parent now and you're at a different stage of life. But if you can avoid that, do that. And then getting into debt, like credit cards, car loans, definitely payday loans, things like that. Those are really destructive types of debt because they're high interest and they're depreciating assets. So a car, if you buy a new car, it loses about 30% of its value in the first 2 years. And car loans are usually high interest rates. Payday loans are terrible. They're absolute ripoff. Credit cards are tricky because they'll offer you incentives to sign up, 0% for 12 months or whatever, or 0% transfers. But then because you have that extra free money, you can go around just spending it like you have it. And that's the real trick, because 12 months later, you have this balance and then it starts accruing interest. So if you can't use a credit card and pay it off within those 30 days, just don't get one. It's going to do more harm than good. and the rewards that they might offer, they're not worth it. If you add up what air miles are worth, or the free hotels, even the cash rewards, and you compare that to what just 1 month's worth of interest on your balance would cost, you could buy your own hotels and airplane tickets for less than what you're paying in interest. So don't fall for that. Also, getting addicted to drugs, just don't try them. A lot of people unintentionally get addicted to drugs. They get into situations where they feel peer pressure, they want to fit in, and they try them for the first time. Maybe they'll do them 2 or 3 times, and then they get addicted. And then not only are they doing it for social acceptance, but they have a personal addiction at that point. So just avoid controlled substances, and even over-the-counters can be dangerous if you take them in excess. A lot of painkillers, prescriptions and things, they can be overdone, overprescribed. So do your best to steer clear of those so you don't get into addictions. Addictions can be costly, but they can also be really damaging to your health too. And then risky activities like car racing, cliff jumping, fighting, just general crime, theft, sleeping around, gambling, day trading. These are all super high risk activities. And at first, pretty much all of them probably sound fun to some people, but they're only short-term fun, and long-term, they will destroy your life. Each one of these, and there's plenty more, but each one of these sounds fun in the moment, but it can cost you years, decades, even for some people, their lives. So stay away from risky activities. There's plenty of ways to have fun in life without doing dangerous things, immoral things, crime. Just try to stay on the straight and narrow, and you're going to have much more long-term success. Next topic is invest in yourself. This would include strategic education, maybe going to community college, vocational trades, learning valuable skills like getting certifications, taking online courses, developing soft skills, communication, problem solving, gaining emotional intelligence, being able to read a room, read emotions on people that you're talking to, and then recognize destructive behaviors in your own life, such as anger problems, depression, anxiety, and try to get professional help for these if needed. If you feel like they're really holding you back or they're getting to a dangerous level, get professional help. There's no shame in doing that. And if you do it early on in your life, it's going to be a lot easier to deal with before it starts becoming deeply ingrained in your personality, your lifestyle, and your habits. So try to do that early on. And like I said earlier, there's no better time than now. So if you're already well into your years and you still have some of these habits and you're destructive, get help right away. Just sooner the better. And try to get into some social circles with people who have overcome things like that. They can be really supportive, and it's encouraging and good to know where other people have gotten through some of the things you're dealing with. I go to a men's group with 10 or 12 guys on average, get together every week and just talk about what's going on in life, and that's really been beneficial for me because I got to see what other people go through, what we have in common, and gotten a lot of tips and advice on how they got through some of these things. And then as you heal, you get to help other people, which is really cool. And you get to see other people benefit from your experience. So the next section is on creating a budget. It's a great life skill. You want to track your income and expenses. For me, I use an app called Monarch Money, and it's really nice. Just so I don't have any sponsorships or anything. And it's just something I find really useful. So what it does is you can connect it to your bank accounts, your loans, credit cards, investments, pretty much all your financial things. Plus you can set financial goals in it. And then as transactions happen, it will track them and categorize them for you. And then you can always reassign the categories, adjust the goals, and it will give you really nice visual charts. And maybe in a future video I can show you some examples of that, but it'll give you bar graphs, line graphs, pie charts, all kinds of stuff that will help you see where your money's going. So where most of your income is coming from, where most of your expenses are, where your money's going out. And it helps you narrow down what you need to focus on to improve your finances. And then you just try to be honest with yourself and divide things into your needs and your wants. And don't call everything a need. When you really think about it honestly, very few things are needs. So try to be honest with yourself. Half the battle is the psychology inside ourselves, right? Just being honest about what's a need and what's a want. And then set clear financial goals, short term, medium term, long term. What would you like to do? What would you like to achieve in the next month? What would you like to achieve in the next year, 5 years, 10 years? What do you want your retirement to look like? It doesn't, even if you're young, it doesn't hurt to think about that. But definitely, if you're really young, think about the short and medium term. And long term helps too, because it gives you a vision of what direction you want to head, so that if the actions you're taking now are helping get you there, that way you don't find yourself just spinning around in circles, trying different things and not really making any progress. So set those goals. You can always change them over time, but at least you're working towards it and it gives you direction. All right, so the next one is build an emergency fund. And I'd say in this day and age, with the kind of inflation we've seen, I'm going to say about $2,000 is a good emergency fund. That's enough to buy a set of tires for most cars. It's enough to repair a minor issue on your furnace or something like that. It's not enough to replace your furnace. It's not enough to replace your car. It's not intended to be. It's just enough to get you by in a pinch. So $2,000, unfortunately, is a small emergency fund. That's just the price of things these days. And then as soon as you can, try to save 3 to 6 months of living expenses for the unexpected events. This is like if you might experience job loss, you might have a health issue that takes you away from work. Maybe you do have a child and then you need to take some time away and the income levels are lower or your expenses are higher. For whatever reason, 3 to 6 months should be your goal. And then really as a long-term goal, it's hard to do when you're young, but as a long-term goal, try to eventually save up 12-month savings. That's a really big goal, and it can take people a long time to do that. I personally haven't done it yet, but I'm sort of in that 3 to 6 month range right now. So that's a good range to be in. 12 months. Most people can find a job in a few months, even if it's not their ideal job. So that's the idea here, is if you lose your job or if you get into a financial crunch, that it gives you a buffer so that you're not in an immediate emergency. So try to build that emergency fund. And then the next one is cooking at home and shopping smart, right? So meal prep saves a lot of money on food. And I think it's a common misconception that healthy food is expensive. Healthy food is not more expensive, and junk food is not cheaper. In the sense that if you cook at home and you buy raw vegetables, rice, potatoes, pasta, you chop up your own veggies, and you go light on the meat. You don't make meat like the 3/4 of the plate. You make it like 1/4 of the plate. So a lot of Asian food is good that way because it's light on meat, but it's chopped up so that it's spread throughout the meal and tastes really good. So it adds flavor, but it's pretty cheap to make. So a lot of Asian meals are cheap to make, but really tasty. So I love those stir fries and curry dishes and things like that. Also, just what you can do is you can make large batches and then split them up into freezer bags, or what used to be called Tupperware containers. I think Tupperware went out of business now, but little plastic containers or just little servings that you can put in your freezer. And then use coupons when you can. If you happen to have coupons, or I don't personally use coupons except maybe for oil changes and a few things because I get them digitally, but if you have them available, use them. Buy in bulk. So Costco memberships, they're about $100 a year. Kind of depends on which type of membership you get. They're right around $100 a year. Might be $125 for an executive. But from me, and I have a big family, so it's me, my wife, and 4 kids. And for 6 people, it saves us a lot of money. It's well worth the $125 because you get a couple percent back that can go towards your membership at the end of the year. So essentially, we get to buy in bulk. We save a lot on things like meat, bread, paper goods, napkins, toilet paper, all that stuff. Also, as long as you have discipline about what you buy there, because Costco is always trying to advertise electronics and new furniture and all these big ticket items, they're not really interested in, they don't make money off of the staples. The staples are there. The chicken and the milk and the cheese and all the stuff that you actually save money on, that's there in the back of the store so that you walk through all of the big ticket items they really want you to buy, because those are the ones they make money on. They don't make money on chicken and milk and eggs, right? But you need those. So if you can have the discipline to walk through a Costco and not buy all the stuff that's advertised along the way and just go right to the bulk food, you can save a lot of money that way. And also you buy our gas there. So all in all, we earn a couple percent back, and then that pays for our membership, plus we get cheaper food, buy it in bulk. It does require that you have a large enough freezer or pantry to store food. So I know that's a little more tough when you live in an apartment, but I think even when I lived in an apartment, I still used Costco or Sam's Club just because the food was cheaper. So definitely worth it for a big family, maybe less so for a small family or just a couple or an individual. And then watch for sales. Keep your eyes out. Watch for those sales and discounts and avoid impulse buys like I was just talking about. So the next category here is understanding transportation choices. When you're shopping for a car, you want to consider buying a reliable used car. I would say never buy a new car unless you're just filthy rich. And that's because a new car loses a third of its value in the first 2 years. That's statistically proven. If you buy a reliable used car, ideally just 2 or 3 years old, most of that depreciation has already happened and it'll retain its value a little bit better if it's 2 or 3 years old. But a lot of us can't afford that. I haven't driven a car that was 2 or 3 years old in a long time. My car is 12 years old, but it works just fine. And that's what I'd recommend. Buy a good used, reliable car. And when you do, make a deal with the seller to get it inspected by a mechanic. You pay a good mechanic locally to just look it over and let them know that you're thinking about buying it and you'd like to know if there's any safety issues, reliability issues, wear and tear that's unusual, anything that might have to be fixed soon. So just get that car inspected before you buy it. We had a bad experience with one that we rushed into and we didn't get it inspected, and it turned out to be a lemon, and it cost double its sell price by the time we were done with it, and we finally resold it to somebody else after we put all the repairs into it just because we were so sick of it. Also, don't be afraid to use public transportation, or you can bike or walk if you have a job that's close enough to do that. I know my first 3 jobs, I think I biked to. Those are in my teens, of course, so 15 to 17 years old, I was biking to all my jobs, and then I finally got a car when I was 17, and that's when I started driving around. So try to do that. You can save a lot of money. No insurance, no gas, and no registration. It adds up. And then some people can't. Sometimes we live in a rural area and we have to use that car, so just try to buy a reliable used one if you can. Prices have gone up. I remember I bought my first used car for $400. It was probably in the early 2000s, and $400, and my second one was $600. So these days I don't think you can get it. They weren't great. They would stall sometimes at lights. I'd have to hit the gas a little bit to keep it running. So they weren't great cars, but they did get me around, and they got me to a job, and they were cheap. So these days I'd say you got to spend at least $3,000 to get a reliable car, unfortunately. I don't think you're going to get much for under that. And then make sure that you avoid lifestyle creep. This means when your income rises, so say you go get a better job, you get a raise, you get a promotion, just keep living modestly and keep being honest about those needs and wants. And then that way you don't absorb all the extra income that you're taking in. That's seriously, I think, one of the biggest temptations about making more money. Everybody wants to make more money, but then when they do, they just find more ways to spend it because they feel like they deserve that extra money and they deserve to spend it. Resist the temptation. Keep your living costs low and try to make more money at the same time, and then save and invest the difference. So you're making more, now you have more to invest. If you invest it, it can grow, and then your money starts making money for you, which I'll give you a few examples here in the next section. So the next section is on saving and investing early. And just for some examples about how it works, compound interest, same concept, right? So if you're a bank and you're loaning money, they make compound interest. If you're investing in the stock market, that's more like compound growth. But either way, just for example, if you invested $300 a month, and I can just pick that number because $300 a month is an amount that a lot of people could come up with if they look at their budget more carefully and they cut out some of their subscriptions and things. $300 a month is doable for a lot of people. So if you did that and you just invested it in, we'll just say the S&P 500, which represents the stock market on average, which that returns about 10% a year over the long term, and you did that for 10 years, your $300 a month would be worth over $61,000 after 10 years. And after 20 years, it'd be worth $206,000. After 30 years, it'd be worth $678,000. And after 40 years, it'd be worth over $1.5 million. So that's only $300 a month. There's people that spend over $300 a month between their entertainment subscriptions, and just wasteful spending like fast food and coffees and things. $300 a month can be found. I think if you look through, a lot of us can find $300 a month worth of things to cut out. So I would encourage you to do that. If you can invest, like I just use the S&P 500 as the example, and that's sort of an average of stock market returns. There's other ETFs, and I'll explain ETFs in another video. But anyways, get some money invested. I can't go into that in great detail here. That would take a while. But I'm going to make another video on investing and how to get started in investing. Anyways, moving on, start small and stay consistent. So if you start investing, just make that a monthly contribution. Don't try to throw it all in one lump sum. You'll probably get overwhelmed. So what I do is I set aside a certain amount each month and I invest that consistently. And then diversify your investments. So I mentioned the S&P 500. You might not want to put it all in there. You could also put some in growth stocks, maybe tech stocks, industrial stocks. In general, for long-term investing, I would recommend just using ETFs. And I'll just tell you real quick, in case you don't know what an ETF is, it's basically a basket of stocks. They usually contain dozens to hundreds of companies. In that way, if a couple of companies in that ETF do badly, the other ones help offset the losses so that overall ETFs, at least good ones, are pretty stable and consistent. There's ETFs out there that are super high risk too because they contain junk companies or high volatility companies. But stick with the well-known ones. And like I said, I can't go too deep into that here, but research ETFs and I can help you do that in another video too. So let's see, next topic here is learn how to run a small business. That can be an overwhelming topic. At least it can sound overwhelming, but really it doesn't have to be a large, intimidating, complicated endeavor. A business is really just a financial instrument or machine that can generate extra income for you. And if you set it up right, and depending on the type of business you set up, it can leverage your time so that you are getting paid for more than just your hours. You're getting paid for maybe your knowledge, your ability to hire and employ other people. Maybe it's marketing, maybe you're selling digital products and they're selling while you're sleeping. So a business can really generate some nice side income. I've run a couple myself. I started a drone photography company about 5 years ago. I did shut that down after a couple of years. It just wasn't a good fit for my lifestyle because of my full-time job. I work 50 plus hours a week, plus I have the 4 kids I told you about. I couldn't fit photography into that schedule, but it was good income for a short time that I did it. And then I started a 3D printing company a couple of years ago and also made some decent money at that. But again, it was less time consuming because 3D printing can partially happen while you're sleeping if you set it up right. But in reality, it was still a lot of work and a lot of time because the 3D printers would clog up, install, and I'd still have to spend a lot of time packaging, running to the post office, and dealing with returns and damages and things like that. So for me, that wasn't a good fit either. That's actually why I'm trying this for another side income. I'm hoping that YouTube might become that for me someday. But anyways, let's see here. If you do start a business, just be prepared to fail multiple times. It's okay to fail because failing is part of the path to success. So my 2 businesses, like I told you about, that I started, I didn't know how to do it. I just learned from reading online and watching YouTube videos and stuff like that. But I also did hired an attorney for about an hour just to get some tips from an attorney on how to start my business. But anyhow, they weren't good fits for me, and you could say they failed in a way just because they didn't end up replacing my income. But they also succeeded in the fact that they taught me what I don't want to do. They steered me away from certain businesses that didn't fit my life so that I could pursue ones that were a better fit. So that's a success, right? Learning what isn't a good fit for you is valuable too. Some people excel at business and others don't, especially the management side of business. So be honest with yourself. I happen to be a really kind of detail-oriented, sort of meticulous kind of person, analytical. So I felt like business was a pretty good fit for me. But there's a lot of people out there they're artistic, they're spontaneous, they're maybe not very analytical. And if that's you and you don't feel like business is a good fit or you don't like the idea of managing it, consider hiring someone like an accountant or a manager or somebody who can manage the business side so that you can focus on the work that you're good at. So whether it's art or music or creative content or things like that, just know what your skills are and what your limitations are, be honest with yourself, and then hire people if you need to, even part-time. You could hire someone for 10 hours a week, and they can make a little side income, or use an app like Fiverr. There's a few apps out there where you can hire people for part-time work. And then some business ideas that you could consider are detailing, 3D printing, photography, social media marketing, pet sitting, graphic design, and these are all just ideas. There's a million different things you could do out there, and I definitely can't think of them all right now. And I will cover how to start a business in another future video, because it's a really interesting and sort of a powerful tool that you can add to your toolkit to make some extra income in life. All right, so next we've got understanding debt, and we can call it good versus bad debt. In a way, I picture all debt as bad, but some debt is more bad than others. So some debt is productive. I don't want anybody to get into massive loans or anything, but if you're taking out a loan to buy a house, and that's usually considered a good investment, because house prices have seemed to only go up over time, and they probably will always do that as long as it's an actual stick house, not so much the mobile homes. Those don't tend to go up in value. But if it's property and you're paying for land and you're building a stick house, as in wood and materials, not a mobile home, then that asset will tend to go up. So if you're getting a loan or a mortgage to buy that, it's probably a good investment, as long as you're not overbuying and buying a house that's too big for you or the payments are too large. So make sure that you're within your limits there. And then student loans, highly dependent on what your career is, but as long as you're getting a student loan for a career that's going to pay off quickly, then that's probably worth it. There are people who get student loans for degrees that they never use, and unfortunately that's a huge waste of money. So consider carefully before you go to school and start taking out loans for degrees that you're never going to use. And then that's a couple examples of maybe what you could consider good debt. Bad debt would definitely be high interest credit cards, payday loans, terrible, and debt for depreciating items like vehicles that we mentioned. So you don't want to be paying interest and borrowing money for things that are actually going down in value, because now you're getting hit twice. You're getting hit on the interest, plus you're losing value on whatever item it is you bought with it. So just in general, credit cards, payday loans, car loans, stay away from them if you can. Those are all destructive forms of debt. And then if you do decide to get a credit card, use it responsibly, pay it full every month and on time. That will build you credit, although some people would say that building credit really shouldn't be a goal, because all building credit really says is that you're good at taking out debt and paying it, which is debatable whether that's a great thing, but you never want to carry a balance. So just pay that balance off in full every month, and then understand that credit card rewards are not free, even though they're advertised as a reward. The reward is really more, you could call it bait. So they're using the reward to bait you into using the credit card, hoping that you will use it so much that your interest that you pay will outweigh whatever little reward they had to give you. And they make deals with, when they give you airline miles, they make deals with those airlines so that those air miles don't actually cost them much. But the interest is real. The interest you pay to the bank really costs you. And then the cash rewards, I do have a cash rewards credit card, and I do enjoy getting a couple % back on my purchases. But I also understand that the moment I can't pay my bill in full in a month, all that went out the window, right? Because if I have to pay interest on my balance, that just erased any rewards that I might have received. So don't think rewards are free, and I would not go into debt or get a credit card just for rewards. And then understand basic taxes. So depending on your age, if you're 18 or older, you're probably paying some taxes now, income taxes. You might be even you're paying sales tax if you buy something, and you might be paying property tax if you own property. But these are all basic type of taxes, and your income tax is on your person, so the work that you do, but it's also on businesses. So if you decide to start a business, if it's like a single owner LLC, then usually those taxes will just be part of your personal income taxes. But once you hire people and you start getting more owners, or you have a partnership, that's sort of a separate tax return that you do for your business. And you don't take my advice as financial or tax advice. If you want to go get a professional to do your taxes. I'm not that guy. Sales tax, obviously you pay sales tax, you're used to that. But if you're a business and you sell items, you have to also charge sales tax. So when you do business on places like Etsy, like well-established marketplaces, they will charge your sales tax for you and they'll collect it for you. And that makes it a lot simpler at the end of the year to report it and make sure that all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, because Etsy collects it for you. But if you do your own business outside of a big marketplace like that, just be sure you're collecting the proper amount of sales tax. Again, I can't give you advice. I don't know where you are. I don't even know what country you might be watching from, but every country, every state, even local cities have different sales taxes. So make sure you see a professional about those if you want advice on sales taxes. And then property taxes, that's one of the fun things you get to pay when you buy land, or you buy a house on land, or you buy a business on land. So anytime you own land, you're going to be paying property taxes on that. And it's pretty significant, actually. It goes up with the valuation of the property too. So I think mine has practically doubled in the last 5 years where I live. So it's pretty crazy how much property taxes are. So also consider that if you're ever thinking about moving from a rental to buying a home. And when you're renting, you pay no property taxes. That's part of your payment to your landlord, is going to his property taxes, her property taxes. But when you own your own property, you're responsible for that on your own. So it's one of the nice things about renting for a short time, is that you don't have to pay your own property taxes. So next section, second to last. I know this video is getting a little long, but this is the second to last topic here. Protect your future with insurance. Car insurance, obviously, I think it's required in every state, so I don't think you can get away with driving without car insurance. And if you do, you're putting everybody at risk. You're putting yourself at risk and others, so don't drive around without car insurance. Car accidents are very common, and some are obviously worse than others. Major costly damage can be done in a car accident that you might not even think of. You might think, I'll save a little money driving around without car insurance because I can afford to repair my own headlights or my bumper. I don't mind if I get a few dents or whatever. That's not why you get car insurance. You get car insurance because of the things that could bankrupt you and other people. So you hit a pedestrian, send them to the hospital, hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills, or you hit somebody's fence or house or another car, an expensive car. Those things could bankrupt you, right? So those are things that you cannot afford to buy out of pocket. You can't afford to pay for those things out of pocket. So get car insurance, and get good car insurance. Don't go with the cheapest one you can find. Life insurance, that's good for people who have others who depend on their income. You don't buy life insurance as a young, healthy individual with no family, because no one's really depending on you for your income yet. But if you have a family, you have a spouse, kids especially, and they've become dependent on your income, say you have a stay-at-home wife and a couple of kids, and you're the sole breadwinner in the house, or whatever the case may be, if you have people that depend on your income, get life insurance, because if something happens to you, how are they going to pay the bills? And you can get life insurance relatively cheap, especially if you're healthy. And the earlier you get it, the younger you are, the healthier you are, the cheaper it'll be. The longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. But really, don't buy it if you're just single. No one's depending on your income. In my opinion, it's kind of a waste. Health insurance, that can be a huge help. Medical costs really shouldn't be as expensive as they are, but being what they are, health insurance will cover things kind of like what I said about car insurance. You want that health insurance in case bills come up that you can't afford, you can't pay for out of pocket. So we can all afford the co-pays or maybe $100 doctor's checkup or something like that. But when it comes to certain prescriptions, certain procedures, they can be in the thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands. An overnight stay in a hospital, get in one accident and you have to stay in the hospital overnight, that's almost guaranteed to be over $10,000. So, and then you start getting into the cost of x-rays and medications, and specialists in that hospital, they all charge separately. It can easily put you in major medical debt. So get health insurance if you can, even if it's just like a catastrophic policy with a big deductible. You want something as a buffer between those major medical expenses and you. And then dental insurance. Dental insurance is really cheap. Usually it's $20 or $30 a month, but it will cover anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a year worth of dental work. So it's well worth it. It's good. Make sure you get your cleanings every 6 months. Keep your teeth in good shape. that'll pay for itself over time. Dental work is expensive, so you want to keep your teeth in good shape. That's an investment in your an investment in your health is an investment in your wealth, right? So keep your teeth in good shape, have good dental hygiene, and you'll avoid things like crowns and root canals and all the expensive procedures. And then insurance for your business. So if you do decide to start a business, make sure you get some liability insurance for that. When I was flying drones and I had a drone business, I had aviation insurance, and then that covered me in case I had an accident with the drone, or say one of the lithium batteries started on fire and burned someone's building down. That would have covered me, and it was up to $1 million of insurance. And I don't have it anymore, but I'm not flying drones anymore. But yeah, you want to get that for sure. Depending on what type of business you have, you'd get different types of insurance. General liability, kind of general things that could happen that could be caused by your business. And then the last section, so we're coming to the end here. Guard yourself against scams and fraud. So be aware of common financial scams and identity theft. Respond to wrong numbers or texts, okay? If you get a phone call or a text from a number you don't recognize and they claim to be a certain company or a certain person, respond to that. Don't even say wrong number. Just go to the number that you already know for that business or that person and call up that business or that person and ask them, you trying to contact me? And I think what you'll find is a lot of times that's a scam. It's a look-alike. They're trying to convince you they're someone they're not. So that's why I say don't even respond to it, because once you respond to it, they'll know they got a live one. It's almost like they're fishing, and once you bite, they know they got a fish, right? They know they got somebody on the other end. So don't even respond to wrong numbers. And then same thing with links. Don't click on links that you don't trust or know, even if they look like they come from a trusted source. If there's anything suspicious about it, or if they're asking for personal information or login information or anything like that. Usually in most programs, you can hover over a link to see where it points to, see if it actually points to the legitimate website. But in any case, if you don't trust the link, go back to a link that you've used before that's trusted and use that link. So they say like, we transferred $300 to your PayPal account. You just need to click on this link. Don't ever do that. Just go into your PayPal account using a link that you already trust, not the one they sent you. Check your balance and see if there's actually money transferred in there. And if you have a problem with the transfer, to PayPal directly, don't communicate through links that are sent to you, because they can redirect you to anywhere they want, and they can just copy the logo and make it look like it's coming from that company. So the thing is, just don't be pushed into shady situations by urgent sounding messages. This is a popular way that people commit fraud. Is they'll tell you, oh, urgent situation, your mother needs $500, she's in the hospital, the only way we're going to be able to accept payment is through Venmo or something like that. Believe any urgent sounding message, right? It's people get pushed into shady situations. Again, if you have a doubt about like mother really being in like a hospital or something, then well, which hospital is it? And then call that hospital. Go to the hospital's phone number somewhere else and call the hospital, or call your mother's phone number. Don't overreact to a message that sounds urgent trying to get money from you. They know that people make poor decisions when they're emotional, right? So don't do that. And then if you start a transaction in one app, as in like say you're in Facebook Messenger and you're trying to an item or buy an item that's on Marketplace, and then they ask you, oh, payment through WhatsApp, or click on this email and we'll finish the conversation. Don't ever do that. That's another really common type of scam, is they'll start the transaction on what's a legitimate marketplace, and then they'll try to finish it in some shady location that's untraceable, right? So don't just stay in the marketplace, have all your conversations through the marketplace like it's Facebook Marketplace. All that is traceable by Facebook, and if anything happens, you can prove what was said and what was sent between you, where if you're lured into another app or a untraceable method, you're kind of luck. It's all on you, right? So that's all I have for today on tips for your starting a bright financial future. I really hope that gave you a good head start, and I hope that it either helps you or helps someone you know ahead and navigate some of life's challenges, right? Because these are all things I learned from either hard knocks or life experience. Like, I don't think any of this was taught to me. So I'm trying to offer it to you to save you in money and struggles that I went through. You could literally save decades off your life and have success a lot earlier by following some of these steps. So start early. About your future when you're young. I know it doesn't sound fun when you're a teenager to think about being 30 or 40 or 50 or 60. It sounds ancient when you're 17 or 18 or 20s, but do it. If you do it, you're going to put yourself in a great financial situation, and you're going to be so much more mature. You're going to make yourself very valuable in the marketplace, and just a lot of success. So I wish you the best, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Have a good one.